Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome back to some SP60 racing with Club100 for 2022, where today we're at Llandow race circuit in the south of Wales near Cardiff on what would be a reasonably mild summer's day. Now, we've never been to Llandow before, and it proved quite a difficult circuit to get up to speed with. So the SP60 was this morning, and then later on in the afternoon we'd do the test, but obviously that test didn't help us get up to speed for these races. So we essentially had the half hour, or not, it's not half hour at all, it's 20 minutes of practice and qualifying before we did our racing, and then we were straight into it. So didn't qualify as well as we would have hoped to, down in P16, but definitely something, a position rather, that we could get some good racing done, get some good footage, and have some battles along the way to hopefully a good result as we go through. That is probably my favourite corner on this entire circuit, that right hand flick. It's the rest of the circuit's quite grippy, but that corner is slightly older tarmac, a bit smoothed over, and you can get a real nice sensation as the kart just sort of gives up a little bit, and you're there carrying some good speed as you're sort of skating across the tarmac. It's a really cool corner. But as we can see, two up in front, getting quite fighty, allowing us to catch up. This corner here, this left-hander going into the right-hand flick, I was finding this one was my nemesis, because you had to get that right if you wanted a good run onto these two double apex left-hander, and then McWhirter's here as well. Very tricky corner to get right. Another one that I was really struggling with over the weekend, but managed to get it up the inside. The driver in front there and secure that position off. Now we can see a move going at the inside there. That's Kevin that's just had, he's been demoted one place. We get a good run, but we're not going to go at the inside of the chicane this time. We had a good run, but not good enough in that situation to really throw it at the inside, and we would have been on the outside for the left-hand part, which would have been very difficult to carry momentum around and then be okay going onto this straight. But what we can do is have a look at the inside of the last corner, given just enough room there by Kevin, but being on the outside there and being squeezed in like we weren't able to carry enough momentum to secure the move off, so we'll have to have another go later on. And we can see Kevin there, he clips the curb a little bit, gets thrown up into the air, we get a slightly smoother run over it, have a look round the outside, can't quite make it work. Going to have another little sniff going into the last corner, but not this time. Kevin good on the brakes under there, and we weren't able to make the move work, so we'll tuck him behind and see if we can make the move happen somewhere else. Now, as we come through McWhirter's here, Kevin keeping that tighter line, end up running a bit wide onto a horrible curb. You don't want to touch that. That really affects your exit speed coming up that corner. We're able to get it up in the inside of our favourite corner on the circuit there, and that's the move rather, secured off, and we can carry on going forward. So as the driver in front gets a horrible slide going through the double left apex, we now have an opportunity to set up a switchback move going through McWhirter's so we can get a better drive off the corner. So because we've set ourselves up to the left hand side now, that pinches the driver in front of us over towards the right, and they can't keep their momentum going through the apex of McWhirter's, which means that we can then cut underneath them, and as they're slow coming off the corner, that gives us the drive to come off the corner and secure that move. So you can see here our wider, more sweeping line helps us keep the momentum, and we get much better acceleration coming off that corner. And then as we go through the right hand flick, we've already got the momentum, we can run it our normal racing line from that point and move onward. So we eventually, after some time, end up catching up with this driver in front, and here we get caught out a little bit. So on previous laps they'd been braking reasonably late. I don't know what changed, maybe they felt something that didn't feel great in the car, but we ended up getting caught out there in the braking zone, get tapped from Ben Lambert behind, completely accidental, which means we go into the back of this driver in front. And as you saw on the left hand side there, as you cross the start finish line, we end up getting a penalty. We had a couple of other contact warnings throughout this race, which were again sort of fair enough if we've been making little bits of contact as we go through, but never anything malicious trying to knock people out of the way. That's not how we want to race. But that last one was one too many according to the marshals. We ended up getting a penalty, which is a shame, but it is the way it is sometimes. And nothing else really happened from that point in race one. We managed to pull a gap to the karts behind, and the karts in front of us at that point were too far gone. So end of race number one. We've managed to move forward from our qualifying position of 16th, but then with a penalty, it knocked us back a little bit from where we would have finished. So we now start on P12 on the grid for race number two. So it'll be a similar story for race number 2, starting on the outside of the grid going into the first turn, but that gives us the inside for the second turn. So if we can stay and get a good launch, we'll be in a good position here, and we do get that good launch. We're able to stay right on the bumper of the kart in front, and they end up getting sort of pushed wide by us, but we were getting pushed into the back of behind, and that opened up some space for us to try and tuck it in. And what ended up being a little bit of a kind of a movement of necessity of going around the outside of that right-hand flip ended up with us getting tapped on the rear quarter, and it sent us round, which was really frustrating. We haven't actually had a racing incident such as that so far at all this year. We've been sort of knocked wide in places and sort of caught up in interesting starts, but that's the first time we've ended up properly behind the pack at the start of an SP60 race, which is unfortunate, but we can always see if we can try and make something out of it. So this is where we start our charge, trying to salvage something from this race number 2, knowing that even though as of next round we would be moving into heavyweights for SP60, it would be nice to try and finish SP60 lightweights with a positive result, even if the result comes from a bit of a fight back through the field. So we're catching up with some backmarker traffic at the moment, where we're just trying to make sure we get past and not affect their race too much, not affect our race too much, and just keep ourselves going. And we could kind of get a little bit of positivity out of this race, because pretty much the main bulk of the pack, as we were going into the double left-hander that we went through a few corners ago, the rest of the pack were coming through this section of circuit here, and the gap wasn't really changing. If anything, we were able to catch up a little bit each lap with that main pack, which showed that our pace was getting better over the course of the day, and then that would continue over the course of the weekend. Our pace would be getting better, which is what we'd hoped for. But it's like I said earlier, it was a tricky circuit to get to grips with, and it's almost a little bit like Rye House in a way, in terms of there's not really any proper straights where you can catch your breath. It's just corner after corner after corner, and it's quite relentless. It's a little bit bumpy, but not too bad. But yeah, you end up finishing a race, especially a half-hour race like this one, and you've had some real hard concentration in order to try and catch up. Now, this is towards the end of the race, and we're getting off the throttle here because we've got Owen Gemman there coming past, who's the current race leader, and we've got a few of the other race leader karts now that have had a nice run through the race, and they're catching up with us. So we didn't want to affect their race at all. So we got off the throttle, let Owen get past, and Owen there with a pretty impressive celebration as he crossed the line, a full 360. But yeah, that was the SP60 for Llandow, round number 8. Not the best result, all down to maybe not the best qualifying that we've ever had this season, and an unfortunate race 2 start. But it was still good fun and a really cool circuit. Looking forward to going back there next year. But until next time, thank you very much for watching, and as always, have a good one.